What if I told you that the biggest obstacle to following your dreams isn't failure, rejection, or lack of talent? What if I told you it's the disappointed look in your parents' eyes when you choose passion over practicality? I know because I chose comedy over my family's expectations. Priya knows because she chose art over her parents' medical school dreams. But here's the secret we both discovered about parent-child love. The moment when everything changed for both of us wasn't when we succeeded. It was when we finally understood what our parents were really afraid of. And that understanding changed everything. See, we think family pressure is about control, about parents wanting to live through their children. But what I learned from Priya's story is that family expectations are usually about love, specifically about parents who've seen struggle trying to protect their children from the same pain they experienced. Let me take y'all back to 1981. I'm 24 years old, working at Ford Motor Company in Cleveland, steady paycheck, good benefits, everything my parents dreamed of for their son. But every night after work, I'm sneaking off to comedy clubs, doing 5-minute sets, chasing a dream that makes no sense to anyone in my family. My parents, Eloise and Jesse Harvey, they didn't come from money. My daddy worked multiple jobs, coal miner, construction worker, carpet installer, whatever it took to feed 7 kids. My mama cleaned houses, took in laundry, did whatever she could to help make ends meet. To them, my job at Ford was a miracle. Health insurance, steady pay, pension plan, everything they never had. I was the first person in my family with what they called a real job, but I'm miserable. Every day at that plant, I'm watching the clock, dreaming about being on stage, making people laugh. I start missing work to perform at clubs. My supervisor calls me in for a meeting. Harvey, he says, you got potential here. You could move up, make supervisor in a few years, but you got to decide, are you going to be serious about this job or not? That night, I go home and tell my parents I want to quit Ford to pursue comedy full time. Y'all, the silence in that room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My daddy looks at me like I just told him I wanted to join the circus. Son, he says, you got a good job. Benefits, security, why would you throw that away to tell jokes? But it's my mama's reaction that breaks my heart. She starts crying, not angry crying, but the kind of crying that comes from deep disappointment and fear. Steve, she says, we sacrificed everything so you could have opportunities we never had. We didn't go without food, without decent clothes, without vacations, so you could quit a good job to chase some foolish dream. Then she says the words that haunt me to this day. Do you know what we went through so you could have security, and you want to throw it all away? I see the hurt in her eyes, the fear in my daddy's face, and for a moment, I almost give up my dream right there. Because how do you disappoint the people who gave up everything for you? Now fast forward to last month. I'm in San Francisco doing a corporate event about following your purpose. And during the Q&A, this young woman raises her hand. Mr. Harvey, she says, how do you pursue your dreams when your dreams are breaking your parents' hearts? After my talk, she approaches me. Her name is Priya Patel. She's 26 years old, first-generation Indian American, graduated from UC Berkeley with a pre-med degree, but instead of going to medical school, she's trying to make it as a visual artist. Mr. Harvey, Priya tells me, my parents came to America from Gujarat, India, with nothing but suitcases and dreams. My father drove a taxi for 15 years while going to night school to become an accountant. My mother cleaned offices while studying to become a nurse. Priya describes growing up watching her parents work multiple jobs, save every penny, sacrifice their own comfort so she and her brother could have better lives. From the time I could talk, Priya says, the plan was clear. I would become a doctor, not because they forced it on me, but because in their mind, doctor meant security, respect, the American dream fulfilled. Priya was a good student, got into Berkeley, excelled in her pre-med courses, but in her junior year, she took an art elective and discovered her passion for painting. I'd never felt anything like it, she tells me. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was doing what I was meant to do. I was good at science, but I was born to create art. Senior year, instead of taking the MCAT, Priya spent her time building a portfolio. Instead of applying to medical school, she applied to art galleries. Her parents didn't know. The night before graduation, Priya finally tells them the truth. I'll never forget that conversation, she says. We're sitting in our living room, and I tell them I'm not going to medical school. I want to be an artist. Her father's reaction mirrors my daddy's. Confusion, disbelief, fear. Beta, he says, that's child in Gujarati. Art is not a career. Art is a hobby. We didn't come to America so you could be a starving artist. But her mother's reaction is what really gets to Priya. Her mama starts crying and says something in Hindi that Priya translates for me. We sacrificed our homeland, our families, our comfort so you could have security in America, and you want to throw it all away to paint pictures? Then her mother says something that sounds exactly like what my mama said. Do you know what we went through so you wouldn't have to struggle like we did? And you choose struggle anyway? Priya tells me she felt like she was betraying everything her parents had worked for, disappointing the two people who loved her most. For 6 months, Priya says, I tried to make everyone happy. I worked as a lab technician during the day to show them I was being practical and painted at night, but I was miserable, and they could see it. Now let me tell you what I told Priya, because this is the lesson that saved my relationship with my parents and changed how I understand family expectations. See, what both Priya and I figured out is that our parents weren't trying to kill our dreams. They were trying to protect us from their nightmares. When my mama cried about me leaving Ford, she wasn't crying because she didn't believe in me. She was crying because she'd watched her own daddy lose job after job, watched her mama go hungry so her children could eat. To her, my secure job at Ford was everything she'd never had and everything she wanted me to keep. When Priya's parents begged her to be a doctor, they weren't trying to control her life. They were drawing from their own experience of struggling in a new country, of being immigrants who had to prove their worth every day. To them, doctor meant respect, security, the kind of life they dreamed of but never achieved. Both of our families were speaking the language of love, but it sounded like the language of limitation. They were trying to save us from struggles they'd experienced, but they didn't understand that struggle might be part of our purpose. Here's what we both had to learn. Our parents' fears were valid, but they weren't prophetic. Their experiences were real, but they weren't our destiny. Y'all want to know what happened when I finally understood what my parents were really afraid of? I sat them down and had a different conversation. Instead of defending my dreams, I acknowledged their fears. Mama, Daddy, I said, I understand you're scared I'm going to fail and struggle like y'all did. I understand that security means everything to you because you never had it. But what if I told you that your sacrifice didn't just give me opportunities, it gave me strength? What if I told you that everything you taught me about hard work and persistence is exactly what I need to succeed in comedy? That conversation changed everything. Not immediately, but slowly, my parents began to see that I wasn't rejecting their values. I was applying them to my own path. My mama started coming to my comedy shows. My daddy started bragging to his friends about his son, the entertainer. They realized that the strength they'd given me was exactly what I needed to succeed in my chosen field. And Priya, 6 months after our conversation, she had a breakthrough moment with her parents. I finally understood that they weren't afraid of my art, she tells me. They were afraid of my poverty. They weren't against my creativity. They were against my potential suffering. So Priya had the same kind of conversation I had with my parents. She acknowledged their fears, honored their sacrifice, but helped them understand that their strength was what made her brave enough to pursue her passion. I told them, Priya says, everything you taught me about perseverance, about working hard, about believing in something bigger than yourself. That's exactly what I need to succeed as an artist. The turning point came when Priya's first gallery showing sold 3 paintings. Her parents came to the opening, watched strangers pay money for their daughter's work, and finally understood that talent plus hard work could equal success in any field. Her father, who'd driven a taxi for 15 years, looked at her paintings hanging in a San Francisco gallery and said, Beta, you didn't waste our sacrifice. You transformed it into something beautiful. So here's your homework, and this is for everyone caught between family expectations and personal dreams. First, understand that your parents' fears come from love, not limitation. They're not trying to crush your dreams. They're trying to protect you from what they perceive as potential failure and suffering. Second, acknowledge their sacrifice before asserting your independence. Show them that you understand what they gave up for you and that you don't take it lightly. Third, help them see that the values they taught you, hard work, persistence, integrity, are exactly what you need to succeed in your chosen path. You're not rejecting their teachings, you're applying them differently. Fourth, be patient with their adjustment period. My parents didn't immediately embrace my comedy career. Priya's parents didn't instantly celebrate her art. Cultural and generational shifts take time. Fifth, prove your commitment through action, not just words. Both Priya and I had to show our families that we were serious about our crafts, that we were willing to work as hard at our dreams as they worked at their survival. If you're struggling with family pressure right now, remember this. Your parents want you to be safe and successful. Your job is to help them understand that success looks different for your generation, but the principles that create it remain the same. Priya learned what I learned 30 years ago. You can honor your parents' sacrifice without duplicating their choices. You can respect their fears without accepting their limitations. Your dreams don't dishonor their struggle. They're the flowering of the seeds they planted with their sacrifice. So have the conversation. Acknowledge their fears. Share your vision. Show them that their strength lives in your courage. Their sacrifice blooms in your success. And remember, the goal isn't to get them to understand your dreams immediately. The goal is to help them see that the values they instilled in you are exactly what will make those dreams come true. Y'all remember that. Family love is about supporting each other's growth, even when that growth looks different than what we expected. Your parents gave you roots. Now use those roots to grow wings. They gave you a foundation. Now build the life that honors both their sacrifice and your authentic self. Because the greatest tribute you can pay to their struggle is not playing it safe. It's being brave enough to use the strength they gave you to create the life they dreamed was possible.